Despite all of the technological advances that are flooding the globe at an exponential rate, there are still parts of the globe that are less touched by the rapid technological evolutions of the 20th and 21st century. In these areas, life goes on much as it has for the past few hundred years, with agricultural trades being the main source of income for those living in these secluded parts of the globe. Along with being less technologically advanced, these rural areas are often poverty-stricken, missing out on capital gains enjoyed by the more urban parts of the nation. Poverty, however, is not the only threat to these rural communities. Less access to medical care and health education are major factors in the tolls that sickness and disease have had on more isolated populations. This is true of a new emerging sickness as well. In 2009, farmers in rural China started to get sick. Symptoms would first manifest as a high fever, in some cases accompanied by vomiting and severe diarrhea. As the disease progressed, symptoms would get worse, sometimes resulting in thrombocytopenia, a low platelet count, and leukopenia, or white blood cell count. In severe cases, sick patients would die of multiple organ failure. Epidemics of this disease would spread across East Asia, but it wasn't until 2 years later that this disease would be identified. In 2011, it received a name: severe fever with thrombocytopenia syndrome virus. Sftsv stands for severe fever with thrombocytopenia syndrome virus. The symptoms associated with this virus were first observed back in 2009 in rural areas of China. Since then, this disease has been found to be endemic in countries like South Korea, Japan, and China. Between 2010 and 2013, 1,768 cases of severe fever with thrombocytopenia syndrome were reported across 14 provinces in less developed parts of China. Those most affected by the viral outbreaks were individuals who were farmers for a living and those who had close contact with livestock. Sftsv is mainly transmitted by the H. longicornis tick. It is thought that these ticks act as the vectors passing the disease. Animals, especially goats and dogs, are thought to be the reservoirs for this virus. Goats, mainly in China, carry the H. longicornis tick and therefore are more likely to carry the virus. About 57% of the goats in areas where outbreaks occurred tested seropositive for Sftsv antibodies. Human-to-human spread of the virus is rarely heard of and only occurs when one person is exposed to the infected blood of another. Symptoms include high fever, vomiting, diarrhea, thrombocytopenia, leukopenia, and multiple organ failure, and has normally had between a 6% to 30% case fatality rate. There have, however, been outbreaks where case fatality has reached almost 50%. The high fatality rate is compared to that of the Ebola virus. The virus decreases the efficiency of the human immune system by inhibiting interferon reactions that allow the immune system to fight the virus. In the case of fatality, most patients die from multiple organ failure. It has been identified as a flebovirus that is part of the bunyavirus family. Like other viruses in this family, Sftsv is an enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. Other viruses that fall under this classification include the Heartland virus of North America and the many different strains of the hantavirus. As of 2017, there has been no vaccine developed to combat Sftsv. There are, however, some antiviral drugs on the market that have shown inhibitory effects against this virus. Favipiravir is an antiviral compound that has greatly improved survival rates and decreased cytopathic effect in both in vitro cultures as well as in vivo mouse models. Employing different forms of pest control would also help decrease transmission of the disease. South Korea, for example, has enacted stricter regulations regarding deforestation, which has decreased the amounts of contacts human and animals have had with H. longicornis. The possible expanse of the vector's tick's territory is another concern that needs to be addressed. This virus has a high likelihood of spreading because of global climate change. If the climate change continues, we could experience a greater area in which this species of ticks could be found in East Asia as well as around the globe. Global policy regarding climate change, such as the Paris Agreement of 2016, may be one of the only ways to try and minimize the humanity's role in expanding the area where H. longicornis can be found. Another method of fighting the disease in rural areas would be to increase health education and infrastructure in these areas. If farmers in these isolated communities were better informed about the danger of parasites and the diseases they carry, they would take more precautions in pest control and person-to-animal contact. By decreasing the incidence of disease in animal reservoirs, this would lead to a decrease in the incidence of disease in humans as well. The emergence of this new deadly hemorrhagic fever virus has put virologists and epidemiologists around the world on high alert. This disease, however fatal, is one whose impact can be managed by antiviral therapies and exposure management. In years to come, this disease will be marginalized and will not be a major threat to human populations anywhere on this green earth.